Peace and greetings, family. I want to talk about real values that lie within the supernatural for us. So there's 3 topics that I'm going to touch on. It's going to be money, land, and transportation. And I picked those 3 because that's where the concentration seems to be at as far as resources. In fact, it has always been front and center on planet Earth. Mediums of exchange include gold and silver. And before we begin to talk about what's going on currently, we have to understand that this is not a new concept. There were entities that came to this planet to mine the gold, not so that they can be rich, of course not. They're living in higher dimensions. So to engage in materialism was not their purpose. Their purpose was to use that gold for its high frequency of communicative abilities. Today, the domination of the dollar has fallen. They sanctioned other countries or bombed other countries if they did not uphold or use the dollar as the medium of exchange. Now, when those countries got tired, they came together to form BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Other countries are applying for membership to BRICS. BRICS units is backed by gold. And this is what the countries and capitalist merchants are doing. They're finding a way to stay current. They're coming out of the dollar and they're searching for ways to pay less taxes, to get more for their medium of exchange. So we as private citizens are looking to do the same. And we should. The politics of money and wealth is a part of the systems of earth that we agreed to before we got here. And this is the main reason why I think that people should vote for their best interest. That's not to say that we should vote with the mentality that we are choosing some outside forces or people to rule over us. But we should vote with the mindset that we live in these systems while we do our spiritual work in this world, in this third dimension. We have to realize that if we want the people to give and support our good work, to buy our products, then they have to have some money to do so. And we have to have some money too. So vilifying the systems that operate mediums of exchange in this crooked corporation isn't going to make us look more righteous when we can ask the Almighty, the Absolute, for guidance concerning our dealings as we maneuver through this hologram, especially when we trust and accept that the Most High can take what little we have and give it true value from and in the supernatural. So we're not of the world. Of the world means that we're engaging in redlining and stealing and shylocking and all the things that the bankers and the so-called creditors do. Yet we must have balance when it comes to how we think, manage, make, and use money. As long as we're not operating with the love of money and we're not putting our trust in money to save us from anything, then we're good. So let's look at how land ownership can help us in these last days. What value in the supernatural does it bring? Land ownership gives one a sense of stability and security and freedom. And many of us may have to forego something in order to get the down payment for it, but isn't that where the supernatural comes in? We don't have to feel hopeless and helpless when we know how universal energy works, not only in the cosmos, but also on this planet, which is part of the cosmos. Continue to cut out the fat from your budget, because we got to do something after declaring our divine decree to have the land. We meet the universe halfway by showing it that we mean business. Now, in Genesis 12th chapter, Abraham was told to leave his father's house. He was already on the land of his father in the Mesopotamian area, but he did so because of a promise made by God of something better. And keep in mind that Abraham was already materially rich with substance, servants, gold and silver and cattle, yet he didn't have a child. And he and Sarah wanted to have children to transfer their material and spiritual wealth too. And then The 13th chapter, Abraham is leaving Egypt with his wife and all that he owned after surviving a famine. And if we keep reading in that 13th chapter, God told him to lift up his eyes and look in every direction. And all the land that he saw, God said he would give it to him and his posterity forever. Now, how many of us struggle with the promise that God gives us and we don't see with our physical eyes how that's going to come about? Are we relying on the supernatural, or are we going to rely on our conditioned thinking in the third dimension? God here reiterates his promise to Abraham. He's also reiterating the promises he made to us. But are we still being tested like Abraham was? Have we given up on the promise? In other words, is the supernatural going to intervene for me? Now in Hebrews 11 chapter 10th verse, it's written that Abraham looked for a city not made with hands, but with foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Now, we didn't read all of that in the Old Testament, did we? We just read that he was promised some land, and when he lift up his eyes and see as far as he can see, that it would be for him and his family, his children that he didn't have. So we know that materialism wasn't what drove Abraham. It's not what's driving us either. He called himself a sojourner. He wanted something beyond the third dimension. We also are sojourners, or we should look at ourselves as that, because we're looking for something higher, something beyond this third dimensional hologram. And we know that we can get it from the supernatural, where the value will last for eternity, meaning that we will receive what we ask for when we elevate our frequencies onto higher dimensions. Remember, Earth is multidimensional, just like us. We have to talk about transportation, especially in the light of the so-called 15-minute cities, to keep tabs on folks, monitor our whereabouts, and to sanction us if our carbon tracks exceed what was assigned. We encountered all of that stuff under the Biden administration, correct? Which we know is part of the World Economic Forum agenda. But the limiting of third dimensional travel options may not occur as quickly after this election. But the wickedly wise have already tipped their hand, and we know that they want to reduce our freedom of movement. Let's go back in time, as far back as we can dare to imagine. Once upon a time, our ancient forefathers used sublime mind to travel, to astral travel, to use bilocation, which is to be in two places at one time. And they used specific cosmic energy to ride the pulsars, to visit whatever galaxy that they chose. Transportation can also include communication, which is telepathy, telekinesis, and so forth. Now that we are returning to spirit, advanced science and information is being downloaded to us, whether we realize that or not. The wickedly wise can't stop that. Oh, they want to block out the sun. They want to block us away from the cosmic radiation that's bringing us information through radiogenesis. And the wickedly wise can't stop it. The divine strongly encourages us to use our senses of touch, taste, smell, sound, and vision, or higher frequencies. We have to think higher thoughts, okay? We have to pay attention to what goes into our minds. And even with that, we're not going to be consciously aware of everything, but guess what? Our subconscious will. That means that we have to be spiritually cautious of our surroundings. In addition, stay away from information overload. It's time for us to put in the work now, what we do know, what we have learned. Begin to implement it in your daily lifestyle. The supernatural will do the rest. Kin 126, the white solar world bridger, with the power of death, the action of equalize, and essence of opportunity. Time, B17, H18. That's going to land us in the fourth time dimension, third mental sphere. Again, time is a universal factor of synchronization. So the factors that we're talking about is money, land, and transportation. But it's on side out, meaning that the interaction between our consciousness and our mental information is when psi occurs and it's being transmitted out into the universe. So this area is also waking conscious mediumship, which is the things that we have on the front burner of our mind. Now, if money, land, and transportation is on our mind, either all three or just one or even something else, we want to ask ourselves, okay, how does it make us feel? How are we elevating our higher cosmic thoughts concerning these things? We have to do that, because if we don't, we're automatically going to revert back to thinking mundanely. How much overtime do I have to put in? How is it going to be financed? Where is it going to be? All of those things. What we're doing is we're taking it higher. We're leaning on the supernatural. We don't ever want to take away the magic of that. So it's up to us to make sure we're in high vibration, transmitting out supernatural thoughts. Space, V19H4. That's going to be in the second time dimension. Fourth mental sphere. It's on the sound of cosmic ascension. Cosmic ascension is the second time dimension. The fourth mental sphere is continuing consciousness. It is steadily on our mind. This is space, though. Space is an infinitely locatable point. All right, so how does the sound of cosmic ascension for our space affect us in beta alpha? What are we hearing in our spaces? Because we should be hearing somebody say, you've got the place. We should be hearing and seeing the space where our land is. We should be seeing in our mind's eye, money. We should see it. Don't doubt it. Don't try to figure it out. In other words, we're going to have to surrender the ego, meaning that we're not going to think about these things in the same routine, the same thought patterns, the same habits as we do in the third dimension reality. Because remember, the superconscious isn't going to pick it up from the fourth mental sphere, second time dimension, if it's not a natural habit. And we're not going to be able to fake it until we make it. We just have to put in the work, put in the shadow work. We're not going to deceive the superconscious. That's why a lot of people don't see their orders coming through, because we're mixing apples with oranges, meaning we're mixing the higher dimensions with third dimensional thoughts and feelings. We have to focus. We have to concentrate. That's what this particular dimension and mental sphere means. Synchronicity, V11H6. And that's going to put us in the seventh mental sphere, seventh time dimension, right in the galactic life whole octave on rune 85. So rune 85 is the galactic life whole channel's time. Okay, we're talking synchronicity, and we know that time is the universal factor of synchronization. So money, land, and transportation, how's that going to be synchronized? How is it all going to come together? When we say channel, we're talking about specific commands, procedures that's sent to the mind, where our time resides. You'll begin to get download. And when you get those downloads, it creates or defines all of the possibilities of cosmic consciousness. We don't have to think about it, how it's going to happen. Galactic Life Whole is going to channel that time, give it to you in your mind, and then you're going to see all of the possibilities of it occurring. That's synchronicity. Peace to the gods.